A millionaire saw the cleaning lady being humiliated on a blind date, and his reaction left her speechless. Before we begin the story, leave a comment telling us which city you are watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Kate Morris adjusted the black dress borrowed from her friend for the 5th time in 10 minutes. The nervousness in her stomach grew like butterflies, doing acrobatics. In the fanciest restaurant she had ever stepped into, there she was, with her makeup smudging in the heavy Miami heat and tight heels that felt like a medieval torture device. "Relax, Kate. It's just a blind date," she whispered to herself, turning the cheap ring on her finger. What could go wrong? Her blind date, Ryan, was 30 minutes late. She had already drunk 3 glasses of water and pretended to answer messages that didn't exist. But then he showed up. Tall, well-dressed, hair slicked back, wearing too much cologne. His expression, however, faded the moment he saw her. He stopped at the door, looked around as if searching for an emotional emergency exit, then walked over to the table with a forced smile. "Kate," he said, pulling out the chair without even greeting her properly. "Hi, I'm glad you came," she replied, trying to sound natural. Ryan sat down, glanced around with visible discomfort, then looked her up and down. "Look, this isn't really what I expected. Your profile said elegant, fun, classic style. I thought you'd be, different." Kate forced a smile. "I am fun and elegant depending on the day. Maybe today isn't the best example." He laughed, but not kindly. "And that dress looks like a motel curtain." She swallowed hard. The joke wasn't even creative. "I almost didn't come," she said. "I thought maybe." "You should have followed that instinct." Kate blinked. "Excuse me, look," Ryan went on, adjusting his cufflinks. "You seem nice, but you're clearly not from my circle. You don't fit with me, you know? You look kind of like a—" He didn't finish. "A cleaning lady?" completed a male voice behind him. Ryan turned, confused. Kate did too. And there he was, Dylan Brooks, resident of PH1, the richest man in the building where she scrubbed elevators and vacuumed carpets since moving to Miami. Dylan wore a dress shirt with sleeves rolled up, his blazer resting on his shoulder. He smiled with a calmness that carried polite venom. "Excuse me," he said, "but this table is reserved for polite people." "Sorry, and you are?" Ryan stood up, not understanding. "A gentleman, apparently in short supply here," Dylan replied. "And, by coincidence, a frequent customer of this restaurant." Ryan frowned. "Look, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm trying to have a date." "Trying?" Dylan gave a low laugh. "Humiliating a woman is not exactly part of a date. It's just gourmet cowardice." Kate froze. The restaurant grew partly silent. Some nearby tables began to pay attention. "Listen here, pretty boy," Ryan started, losing his charm. "This is none of your business." "You're right." Dylan looked at Kate and extended his hand. "But if she accepts, it can become my business." Kate hesitated for 2 seconds. Then, in an impulse even she didn't understand, she took his hand and stood up. "By the way," Dylan said, turning to the waiter, "table for 2. And please escort this gentleman out." Seems he left his manners at the door. While Ryan fumed and was gently led to the exit, Kate, still holding Dylan's hand, trembled slightly. "You didn't have to," she began. "I had to," he interrupted with an almost shy smile. "After all, I recognized you." She bit her lip, torn between relief and not knowing where to look. "I didn't even know you noticed me." "Of course I do. Every Tuesday you sing loudly in the hallway while cleaning the carpet on the 8th floor. Hard to forget." Kate let out a short laugh, surprised. That was the radio. And the voice, too. He winked. "Now, will you have dinner with me? But I can't afford it. I've paid for plenty of garbage in my life, Kate. Tonight I'd rather invest in decent company." And that's how the worst date of her life turned into something unexpected. As they sat down, Kate felt that something unusual was happening. And it wasn't just the wine being served. It was as if, for the first time in a long while, someone looked at her with no filters, no judgment, no fear of labels, and she had no idea where it would lead. The dinner that began as a social rescue quickly turned into something Kate never expected, an unplanned comedy session. Dylan had a peculiar way of asking questions, not the usual ones on a first date, like, "What do you do for a living?" or "What's your sign?" No, he asked things like, "If you could choose a superpower, but it only worked on Tuesdays between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, what would it be?" Kate almost choked on her wine. Seriously? That's your conversation strategy? Strategy? Dylan pretended to be offended. This is pure social science. I'm mapping your personality through absurd, hypothetical scenarios. Oh, so this is an experiment? Kate raised an eyebrow. How romantic. It works better than asking about exes or career plans. Those are conversations for regular people. And we're not regular? Dylan looked around the fancy restaurant, then at Kate in her borrowed dress, and finally at himself. A cleaning lady and a millionaire having dinner after he threw out her disastrous date? Kate, if that's regular, then I'm an astronaut. She laughed too loudly, making a few heads turn. Sorry, but you do look like an astronaut, the kind who gets lost in space and forgets how to get back to Earth. Hey, Dylan protested. I know exactly where I am. Are you sure? Because you're having dinner with a woman who has $5 in her purse and borrowed shoes from her neighbor. The shoes are borrowed? The dress too. Actually, the only thing that's mine here is the underwear, and even that's questionable. Dylan almost spit out his wine. Kate Morris, you just broke every polite conversation protocol I've learned in 28 years of life. Protocols are overrated, she said, cutting her steak with an elegance that contrasted with her words. Besides, if you wanted polite, you would have had dinner with that blonde with silicone I saw leaving your apartment last week. You saw Victoria leaving? Hard not to. She was wearing heels so high she looked like she was walking on stilts, and her perfume reached the elevator 2 floors before she did. Dylan laughed, shaking his head. You're observant. I'm paid to be invisible, so I have time to observe. Kate shrugged. For example, I know you talk to yourself in the shower because I hear you when I clean the hallway, and that you only eat cereal for breakfast because that's what I see most in your trash. That's a little scary, or useful. Imagine having someone who knows all your odd habits and still doesn't judge you. And what are my odd habits? Kate made a dramatic pause as if compiling a mental list. You talk to your plants. You have a stuffed pineapple on your bed. And you wear underwear with pizza prints. Dylan stopped chewing. How do you know about the underwear? I collect your laundry, remember? Kate smiled mischievously. And for the record, the hamburger ones are the funniest. That's an invasion of privacy. That's housework. Not my fault if you have the wardrobe of a wealthy teenager. I like fun underwear. That makes me interesting. That makes you someone with growing up issues, Kate laughed. But at least they're cute issues. The conversation went on like that. Dylan trying to maintain his dignity, while Kate methodically broke down every attempt he made to seem sophisticated. It was like watching someone try to build a house of cards during an earthquake. Can I ask a serious question? Dylan said when dessert arrived. You can, but I can't promise a serious answer. Why did you agree to have dinner with me? After what happened with that idiot, you could have just left. Kate stirred her tiramisu, thoughtful. Because you did something no one has done for me in a long time. What's that? You defended me without wanting anything in return. At least, I hope you don't want anything in return. Just your company. You already have that. Then we're even. When dinner was over, Dylan insisted on driving Kate home. His car was as fancy as expected, but he drove like a normal person, not like someone trying to impress. Thank you for the rescue, said Kate when they arrived at her modest building, and for the food and for making me laugh. Thank you for reminding me I actually have a sense of humor, Dylan replied. Sometimes I forget that in the middle of all the corporate seriousness. Kate got out of the car, waved, and went up to her small apartment, still processing the surreal night she had just lived. The next morning, her phone rang early, very early. Kate answered with a sleepy voice. Kate Morris? Said a formal female voice. This is she. This is Helen Rodriguez from the Ocean Tower Administration. We're calling to inform you that your services will no longer be required starting today. Kate sat up in bed, fully awake. What do you mean? Did I do something wrong? Just an internal reorganization. Your final payment will be deposited by the end of the week. But Helen, I need to know the reason. The phone hung up. Kate stared at it, as if it had just slapped her in the face. If you could choose a superpower, but it only worked on Tuesdays between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, what would it be? Kate almost choked on her wine. Seriously? That's your conversation strategy? Strategy? Dylan pretended to be offended. This is pure social science. I'm mapping your personality through absurd hypothetical scenarios. Oh, so this is an experiment? Kate raised an eyebrow. How romantic. It works better than asking about exes or career plans. Those are conversations for regular people. And we're not regular? Dylan looked around the fancy restaurant, then at Kate in her borrowed dress, and finally at himself. A cleaning lady and a millionaire having dinner after he threw out her disastrous date? Kate, if that's regular, then I'm an astronaut. She laughed too loudly, making a few heads turn. Sorry, but you do look like an astronaut. The kind who gets lost in space and forgets how to get back to Earth. Hey, Dylan protested. I know exactly where I am. Are you sure? Because you're having dinner with a woman who has $5 in her purse and borrowed shoes from her neighbor. The shoes are borrowed? The dress, too. Actually, the only thing that's mine here is the underwear, and even that's questionable. Dylan almost spit out his wine. Kate Morris, you just broke every polite conversation protocol I've learned in 28 years of life. Protocols are overrated, she said, cutting her steak with an elegance that contrasted with her words. Besides, if you wanted polite, you would have had dinner with that blonde with silicone Ford I saw leaving your apartment last week. You saw Victoria leaving? Hard not to. She was wearing heels so high she looked like she was walking on stilts, and her perfume reached the elevator 2 floors before she did. Dylan laughed, shaking his head. You're observant. I'm paid to be invisible, so I have time to observe. Kate shrugged. For example, I know you talk to yourself in the shower because I hear you when I clean the hallway, and that you only eat cereal for breakfast because that's what I see most in your trash. That's a little scary. Or useful. Imagine having someone who knows all your odd habits and still doesn't judge you. And what are my odd habits? Kate made a dramatic pause, as if compiling a mental list. You talk to your plants. You have a stuffed pineapple on your bed. And you wear underwear with pizza prints. Dylan stopped chewing. How do you know about the underwear? I collect your laundry, remember? Kate smiled mischievously. And for the record, the hamburger ones are the funniest. That's an invasion of privacy. That's housework. Not my fault if you have the wardrobe of a wealthy teenager. I like fun underwear. That makes me interesting. That makes you someone with growing up issues. Kate laughed. But at least they're cute issues. The conversation went on like that. Dylan trying to maintain his dignity while Kate methodically broke down every attempt he made to seem sophisticated. It was like watching someone try to build a house of cards during an earthquake. Can I ask a serious question? Dylan said when dessert arrived. You can, but I can't promise a serious answer. Why did you agree to have dinner with me? After what happened with that idiot, you could have just left. Kate stirred her tiramisu, thoughtful. Because you did something no one has done for me in a long time. What's that? You defended me without wanting anything in return. At least I hope you don't want anything in return. Just your company. You already have that. Then we're even. When dinner was over, Dylan insisted on driving Kate home. His car was as fancy as expected, but he drove like a normal person, not like someone trying to impress. Thank you for the rescue, said Kate when they arrived at her modest building. And for the food, and for making me laugh. Thank you for reminding me I actually have a sense of humor, Dylan replied. Sometimes I forget that in the middle of all the corporate seriousness. Kate got out of the car, waved, and went up to her small apartment, still processing the surreal night she had just lived. The next morning, her phone rang early, very early. Kate answered with a sleepy voice. Kate Morris? Said a formal female voice. This is she. This is Helen Rodriguez from the Ocean Tower Administration. We're calling to inform you that your services will no longer be required starting today. Kate sat up in bed, fully awake. What do you mean? Did I do something wrong? Just an internal reorganization. Your final payment will be deposited by the end of the week. But Helen, I need to know the reason. The phone hung up. Kate stared at it as if it had just slapped her in the face. Kate stared at the silent phone for a full 5 minutes, as if waiting for it to ring again with a correction. Sorry, we called the wrong number. Actually, we want to promote you to general manager. But the phone remained silent, just like her bank account and her job prospects. After taking a shower that lasted exactly 3 minutes to save hot water, Kate decided she needed answers. And if there was one thing she had learned from cleaning offices for 2 years, it was that answers were always hidden behind fake smiles and corporate excuses. She put on her best, determined woman searching for the truth outfit, jeans without holes and a blouse that wasn't wrinkled, and marched to the ocean tower like a general heading into battle. The building looked different when you weren't authorized to be there. More imposing, more intimidating, as if the golden elevators themselves were judging her presence. "May I help you?" asked Bradley the doorman, with that tone all fancy building doormen mastered, polite on the surface, but with a layer of suspicion underneath. "Hi, Bradley. It's me, Kate Morris. I need to speak with someone from management." Bradley looked at her as if she were a ghost that had just materialized. "Kate? But you don't? I mean, I heard that. That I was fired? Yes, I heard the same thing. That's why I'm here. I need to understand the reason." "Well, Mrs. Rodriguez isn't?" "Then I'll wait." Kate headed to the reception sofas and sat down with the determination of someone who had all the time in the world and no job to lose. 20 minutes later, Helen Rodriguez appeared, visibly uncomfortable. "Kate, you shouldn't be here. We already talked on the phone." "Talked?" Kate stood up with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Helen, you spoke to me for 43 seconds and hung up. That's not talking, that's discarding. Look, this wasn't my decision." "Then whose was it?" "Because up until yesterday I was an exemplary employee. I was never late, never broke anything, never complained about the crazy hours." "What changed in 12 hours? Helen glanced around nervously, as if hoping someone would appear to save her. "It was a decision from the board." "What board?" "The manager is Mr. Peterson, who is traveling in Europe. The administrator is you. Who else has the power to fire someone here?" "Kate, please." "Helen, I've been cleaning this building for 2 years. I know every apartment, every resident, every dirty secret hidden behind these fancy doors, and I know when someone is lying to me." Helen sighed, defeated. "It was a conflict of image." "Conflict of image?" Kate repeated, incredulous. "I'm a cleaning lady, not a social media influencer. What image could I possibly conflict with while vacuuming carpets? Someone saw you socializing with one of the residents in an inappropriate context. The realization hit like a piano falling from the 10th floor. Socializing? You mean having dinner, Kate? Someone saw me having dinner with Dylan Brooks and thought that was inappropriate? The specific name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knows there's only one resident in this building important enough to cause a conflict of image." Kate laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "Let me guess, a very elegant, very powerful woman, very concerned about the family reputation?" Helen didn't answer, but her expression confirmed everything. "His mother," Kate murmured. "Evelyn Brooks. I can't confirm. You don't need to. Now it all makes sense." Kate headed to the elevator with a determination that made Bradley step back instinctively. "Kate, you can't go up." "Bradley, are you going to stop me? Physically?" The doorman looked at the 5'3" woman who seemed capable of knocking down a bull with the sheer power of indignation and quietly returned to his desk. The ride to the top floor never felt so long. Kate mentally rehearsed what she would say, every word carefully chosen for maximum emotional impact. When the doors opened to the penthouse, Dylan was there, standing in the room as if he knew she was coming. "Kate." "Dylan, I can explain." "Oh, can you?" Kate walked into the apartment uninvited. "Good, because I'm dying to hear how you explain how an exemplary cleaning lady goes to bed employed and wakes up unemployed after having dinner with the prince of the building." Dylan closed his eyes for a moment. "My mother saw you. Wow, what a surprise." Kate clapped sarcastically. "And she thought the maid was forgetting her place?" I didn't know she would." "Didn't know." "Dylan, how many years have you lived in this building? You've known your mother for 28. How could you not know she would do exactly this?" "Because I didn't think that." "That what? That having dinner with me would have consequences? That your mother wouldn't approve? Or that I'd find out you're capable of ruining my life without even realizing it?" Dylan ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "It wasn't intentional." "It wasn't intentional?" Kate laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Dylan, you invited me to dinner knowing exactly who you are and who I am, knowing that your family lives in a world where people like me only exist to clean up the mess of people like you. And now you're surprised this went wrong? I just wanted what? To feel good about yourself? To be the Prince Charming who saves the maid? To have an adventure with the cleaning lady so you could feel rebellious? No, Dylan exploded. I wanted to get to know you better because you're the first person in years who actually makes me laugh. The silence that followed was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. Kate looked at him for a long moment. And was it worth it? Getting to know the funny cleaning lady cost me my job, my financial stability, and apparently my dignity. But at least you laughed, right? Kate, I can fix this. How? Call your mommy and ask her to rehire me? Explain that I'm a good maid who knows her place? No, I'll give you a better job. Kate stopped pacing and stared at him. What do you mean? Work for me, directly, as my personal assistant. Your personal assistant, Kate repeated slowly. I clean bathrooms for a living. What qualifications do I have to be a millionaire's assistant? You're organized, punctual, observant, and the only person I know who can put me in my place when necessary. Those are exactly the qualifications I need. And when your mother finds out, she won't interfere in my business. Are you sure about that? Dylan hesitated for a fraction of a second. That was enough. See? Kate said. You're not sure of anything. You can protect me from your family. You're not sure this will work, and you're probably not even sure about what you're offering. I'm sure of one thing, Dylan said, looking straight into her eyes. I'm sure you didn't deserve to be fired for having dinner with me, and I'm sure I want to fix this. Kate stayed silent for a moment, weighing her options, which basically were, accept the offer or go home and look for a job in the classifieds. What would my salary be? 3 times what you made as a cleaner. And the responsibilities. Organize my schedule, manage my mail, remind me to eat something besides cereal, and stop me from making more mistakes like the one that caused all this. And if it doesn't work out, then at least we tried. Kate sighed, feeling the weight of a decision that could completely change her life. Dylan Brooks, you are without a doubt the most complicated person I've ever met. Is that a yes? That's a let's see what happens, but if your mother tries to fire me again, I'll tell all the neighbors about your pizza underwear. Dylan smiled for the first time since she had arrived. Deal. Kate showed up on Monday at 8 in the morning, dressed in her most professional outfit, a black skirt and a white blouse she had bought specifically for job interviews that never happened. She was determined to keep everything strictly professional. No jokes, no intimacy, nothing that could be interpreted as inappropriate socializing. The plan lasted exactly 15 minutes. Good morning, Dylan, she said, walking into the penthouse with an organizer folder under her arm. I'm here to start my job as your personal assistant. There was no response. Dylan? Kate heard music coming from the office. Not normal music, but something that sounded like a mix of electronic beats and whale sounds. She followed the noise and found Dylan sitting at his desk, wearing huge headphones, nodding his head to the rhythm and talking to himself. Or at least she thought he was talking to himself. No, Alexa, I don't want the weather forecast in Tokyo, he said to the air. I want to know if you can order Colombian coffee without judging me for drinking 6 cups a day. Sorry, I did not understand your request, replied a female voice with a Russian accent coming from somewhere in the apartment. Not you, Svetlana? I'm talking to Alexa. Who's Svetlana? Kate asked loudly enough for him to hear over the electronic whale music. Dylan turned and almost fell out of his chair when he saw her. Kate? You came. Did you think I wouldn't? We agreed yesterday. Yes, but... He took off the headphones. I thought you might have changed your mind, or that my mother might have kidnapped you overnight. Too early for kidnappings. Now who is Svetlana? Oh, she's my virtual assistant. Well, one of the virtual assistants. I have 3. Kate blinked. 3 virtual assistants? Why do you need 3 virtual assistants? Each one has a different specialty. Alexa handles the house, Svetlana organizes my work, and Sophia helps me with investments. And you still needed a human assistant? The virtual ones can't stop me from making mistakes. I tried to program that, but they just respond, command not recognized, when I'm about to ruin my life. Kate set the folder on the desk and sighed. Dylan, this is going to be interesting. Dobro utro, Kate Morris, said the Russian voice from nowhere. Kate looked around, confused. What did she say? Good morning in Russian. Svetlana is very polite, sometimes too polite. Yesterday she corrected me because I said, please, only twice in an email. You're telling me your Russian virtual assistant gives you lessons in etiquette? Actually, she gives lessons about everything. Svetlana, tell Kate about the time you stopped me from buying an elephant. In September 2023, you attempted to place an online bid to adopt an orphaned elephant. I intervened because you live in an apartment, Svetlana replied. Elephants need space. You only have 300 square meters. Kate looked at Dylan in disbelief. You tried to buy an elephant? Adopt, and I was thinking of moving to a house with a yard. To accommodate an elephant? It was a very cute baby elephant. Kate sat heavily in the chair across from his desk. Okay, let's start again. I'm Kate Morris, your new human personal assistant, and apparently I'll be competing with 3 computers for the privilege of stopping you from ruining your life. Technically 4 computers. I also have James. Who's James? As if summoned, the refrigerator in the kitchen lit a blue light and said in a British accent, Good morning, Miss Morris. I am James, intelligent household assistant. May I inform you that Mr. Brooks has eaten only cereal for the last 4 days and suggest a nutritional intervention. Kate looked at Dylan, then at the fridge, then back at Dylan. Your refrigerator has a name and a British accent, and a personality. James is a bit dramatic. Last week he refused to open because I ate pizza for breakfast. It was a peaceful protest for your health, sir, James said defensively. See? Dramatic. Kate stood and walked to the kitchen where she faced the smart fridge. James, is that true? Yes, ma'am. A pleasure to meet you. May I suggest you try to convince Mr. Brooks to eat vegetables? I have carrots for 3 weeks. I'll try, James. Thanks for the tip. You're welcome, ma'am. I would also like to mention that he talks to me at 2 in the morning when he can't sleep. James, Dylan protested from the living room. That was confidential. Sorry, sir, but I found it relevant for training the new assistant. Kate returned to the living room laughing. Dylan, your domestic life is more complicated than a reality show. It's practical to have everything automated. Practical? You have 4 digital assistants, and you still hired a human. That's not practical, it's a collection. They have limitations. Like what? Well, when I told Alexa to play music to sleep, she played heavy metal because she interpreted music to die instead of music to sleep. Kate laughed out loud. Seriously? And Sophia once invested my money in a candy company because I said I wanted sweet stocks. Stop speaking Portuguese with an American accent to machines programmed in English. I'm not speaking Portuguese. Dylan, you just tried to explain that you said sweet stocks, but it sounded like ações doces. You're translating in your head. Maybe a little. Kate spent the rest of the morning trying to understand Dylan's organizational system, which seemed created by a mad genius with attention deficit. There were digital folders named Important but not Urgent, Urgent but maybe not that important, and mysteriously, For when I understand what this is. Dylan, what does this folder called Plans to Dominate the World but in a Polite Way mean? Oh, those are my business ideas. Most are crazy, but some might work. Like what? An app that connects lonely people with dogs that need walking. Kate stopped typing. That is actually a good idea. Really? Really? Why haven't you developed it? Svetlana said I don't have enough knowledge about canine behavior. Svetlana is wrong. You should try. You think so? Dylan, you just convinced me it's possible to have a civilized conversation with a refrigerator. I'm sure you can build an app. They spent the rest of the day organizing files, answering emails, and trying to create a system that worked for a brain that seemed to function in 3 different dimensions at the same time. Kate discovered that Dylan was incredibly smart, but his mind jumped between subjects like a hyperactive kangaroo. Late in the afternoon, while Dylan was on a call, Kate was organizing some documents on his computer when she accidentally clicked on the draft emails folder. Most were professional messages he had started and never sent, but one caught her attention by its subject line, "To myself." About her. Curiosity killed the cat, but Kate couldn't resist. She clicked on the email and read, "I don't know how to explain what's happening to me. I met someone completely unlikely. Someone who shouldn't make any difference in my life, but she does. She's funny in a way that catches me off guard, smart in a way that surprises me, and honest in a way that scares me. She makes me want to be a better person, not to impress her, but because when I'm with her, I remember who I really am underneath all this complication people call my life. I think I'm completely taken with Kate Morris, and I have no idea what to do about it." Kate stared at the screen for a long moment, her heart beating faster. She quickly closed the email when she heard Dylan finishing his call. "How was the first day?" he asked, coming back to the desk. "Educational," Kate answered, trying to sound normal. "I learned a lot about your bizarre habits and your virtual assistants with personalities. And what's your verdict? Worst job in the world, or the best?" Kate smiled, still processing what she had read. "I'm still deciding, but I can tell you one thing. It's definitely not boring." "Is that good or bad?" "Ask me again tomorrow, after I find out if Svetlana will accept me as a coworker. Svetlana loves healthy competition." Dylan said, "I'm sure you'll get along." "From the Russian virtual assistant, Mrs. Morris," said Svetlana out of nowhere. "Teamwork is maximum efficiency." Kate laughed and shook her head. Maybe this really was the strangest job in the world. But as she packed her things and got ready to leave, she couldn't stop thinking about the words Dylan had written about her. Completely taken. Maybe it wasn't so bad after all. 3 weeks later, Kate had already gotten used to the crazy routine of working for Dylan. She had learned to interpret Svetlana's moods. Apparently, Russian virtual assistants could also have PMS. To negotiate with James about Dylan's food choices, carrots were still a point of conflict, and to decipher her boss's unique organizational system. That Thursday, they were working late finalizing a proposal for a sustainable technology project. The room was lit only by the computer light and a few candles Dylan had lit because, according to him, artificial light after 9 at night hurts creativity. Kate suspected he just liked the romantic mood, but didn't say anything. She said, saving the document for the 10th time. "Proposal finished, budget reviewed, schedule approved. You officially have a project that could revolutionize the clean energy market." Dylan stretched in his chair, tired. "I can't believe we managed to finish this in 3 weeks." "We did because I organized your creative chaos into something that makes sense to normal people." Kate smiled. "And because Svetlana stopped suggesting investing in wind farms in Antarctica. They were valid ideas." "Dylan, there are no wind farms in Antarctica because there are no people in Antarctica to use the energy." Technical details. Kate laughed and got up to get some water in the kitchen. When she came back, Dylan was standing by the window, looking out at the Miami night view. "Penny for your thoughts?" she said, walking closer. "I was thinking about how my life has changed since you got here." "Changed? How so?" Dylan turned to her, and Kate realized he was closer than she expected, much closer. "Before, I was living on autopilot. Work, meetings, projects, more work. I didn't even realize I was just existing. And now I have someone who laughs at my bad jokes, who stops me from buying elephants, and who can turn my crazy ideas into something real." Kate felt her heart race. The distance between them seemed to shrink without either of them moving. "Dylan, Kate, I need to tell you something." "What?" He stopped as if searching for the right words. "Since that night at the restaurant, since you started working here, I can't stop thinking about what it would be like if this was more than just work." Kate swallowed hard. The air between them seemed charged with electricity. "That would be a very bad idea," she whispered. "Probably the worst idea I've ever had," he agreed, stepping a little closer. "It would complicate everything. Completely. Your mother would have a heart attack, several heart attacks, and I could lose my job. Again. I would never let that happen," Dylan said, raising his hand to touch her face. Kate closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the warmth of his hand on her skin. "Dylan, we can't. I know. But I want to." "I want to too," she admitted, opening her eyes. They were so close now that Kate could feel his breath. Dylan tilted his head, and she did the same, and for a moment it seemed like finally... Ding-dong. The apartment doorbell rang like a fire alarm in a silent moment. Dylan and Kate pulled away immediately, as if shocked. "Were you expecting someone?" Kate asked, trying to regain composure. "No," Dylan frowned, glancing at the clock. "It's almost 10 at night. Ding-dong, ding-dong." "Mr. Brooks," said James from the kitchen, "there is a visitor at the entrance. Facial recognition confirms. Victoria Ashford." Dylan turned pale. "Victoria? What is she doing here? Who's Victoria? Kate asked, though she already knew the answer from his tone. My ex-fiancé. Kate felt her stomach sink. Your ex-fiancé is ringing the doorbell at 10 at night? Apparently, yes. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. She's not leaving, Kate observed. Dylan ran a hand through his hair, clearly unsettled. I'll answer. Stay here. But Kate followed him to the door. Not out of curiosity, well, totally out of curiosity, but because she wanted to see what kind of woman could make Dylan Brooks nervous like that. Dylan opened the door, and Kate understood immediately. Victoria Ashford was exactly what Kate expected a millionaire's ex-fiancé to be. Tall, blonde, dressed as if she had stepped off a fashion magazine cover, and with the kind of confidence that only comes from a bank account with many zeros. Dylan, darling, Victoria said, stepping into the apartment as if she still lived there. I hope you don't mind the surprise visit, but I just had to talk to you. It was only then that she noticed Kate. Oh, Victoria said, looking Kate up and down with the kind of analysis women make in 0.3 seconds. You have company. Victoria, this is Kate, my personal assistant. Kate, this is Victoria. Personal assistant? Victoria smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. How convenient. Kate felt the insult implied, but smiled back. It's a pleasure to meet you, Victoria. Dylan has told me a lot about you. He has? Victoria looked at Dylan with a raised eyebrow. How interesting. And what exactly has he told you? Kate realized she had stepped onto dangerous ground, but decided to go on. Oh, just that you two were engaged, and that you like high heels and strong perfume. Dylan coughed loudly, trying not to laugh. Victoria, on the other hand, didn't find it funny at all. How observant, she said with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. It's my job to notice details, Kate answered cheerfully. Well, said Victoria, turning to Dylan, I came because I need to talk to you about a business opportunity. Something that could really interest you. Victoria, it's almost 10 at night. Oh, Dylan, you've always been so formal about schedules. Remember when we used to work late on the foundation project? Some of our best ideas came after midnight. Kate watched the exchange of looks between them and felt a sting of something that was definitely not professional jealousy. What kind of opportunity? Dylan asked, visibly uncomfortable. A sustainable technology project. Clean energy, social impact, everything you love. And I have the perfect investors. Kate and Dylan exchanged a quick look. They had just finished exactly that kind of project. Actually, Kate said, we just finished a proposal for it, Kate. Victoria interrupted smoothly. This is a business conversation between Dylan and me. I'm sure you understand. The message was clear. Leave. Kate looked at Dylan, waiting for him to say something. To say she could stay. That her opinion mattered. That they were a team. But Dylan only said, Kate, why don't you go home? We've worked enough today. Kate felt like she had just been punched in the stomach. Of course, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'll get my things. While she packed up her documents, Kate could hear Victoria talking to Dylan about how wonderful it would be to work together again, and how she always knew they would make the perfect team. Kate, Victoria said when she passed through the living room on her way to the door, it was a pleasure meeting you. I'm sure we'll see each other often since I'll be working temporarily with Dylan on this new project. Kate stopped at the door and turned. Temporarily? Oh, yes. Victoria smiled triumphantly. Dylan and I always worked very well together. Isn't that right, darling? Dylan looked torn between discomfort and something Kate couldn't identify. Nostalgia? Renewed interest? Good night, Kate said, leaving before she could say something she'd regret. While she waited for the elevator, Kate heard laughter coming from the apartment. Familiar, intimate laughter. From two people who shared history. When the elevator doors closed, Kate allowed herself to feel the full weight of disappointment. For a moment, in that candlelit room, she had thought that maybe, just maybe, she and Dylan could be something more. But Victoria had appeared like a cruel reminder of who Kate really was in Dylan's life. Just the assistant. Replaceable, expendable, and apparently easily forgotten when someone from his past returned. The elevator descended slowly, and with each floor that passed, Kate felt as if she was returning to her original place, far from Dylan Brooks's world, where she had always belonged. Kate arrived at work on Friday, determined to act as if nothing had happened. After all, she was a professional, an exemplary personal assistant. Definitely not a woman who had spent the whole night replaying in her mind an almost kiss interrupted by her boss's perfect ex-fiancé. Definitely not. But when the elevator doors opened to the penthouse, Kate came face to face with a scene that severely tested her professional resolve. Victoria was sitting at Dylan's desk, wearing one of his dress shirts over tight pants, her hair perfectly tousled on purpose, and a cup of coffee in her hands. "Good morning, Kate," Victoria said with a radiant smile. "I hope you slept well." Kate looked at Dylan, who was sitting on the other side of the table with an expression that could only be described as a man who made a mistake and doesn't know how to fix it. "Good morning," Kate replied, setting her bag on the side table. "I see you started early today." "Oh, actually, we never stopped last night," Victoria said, stretching like a satisfied cat. "You know how it is when ideas start to flow." We lost track of time. Kate felt a knot in her stomach but kept her smile. "How productive." "Dylan, do you need me to organize anything for the new project?" Kate? Dylan began, but Victoria cut him off. "Actually, dear, I already organized everything. I have experience managing complex projects. MBA from Harvard, you know." "How convenient," Kate said. "I have experience organizing Dylan's life specifically. 2 months of intensive training." Victoria laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. 2 months? How cute. Dylan and I worked together for 3 years when we were engaged. I know all of his methods. The word methods was said with an intonation that made Kate feel like she needed a shower. "Good to know," Kate said, sitting at her chair. "Dylan, what's the agenda for today?" "Well, Victoria and I are going to review the contracts with the investors. And then we have lunch at the club," Victoria added, "to discuss strategies. That's where we always did our best deals." Kate typed something on the computer just to have something to do with her hands. "Should I cancel your other meetings then?" "What other meetings?" Victoria asked. "The call with the solar energy team at 2, the budget review at 3, and the conference with the lawyers at 4, Kate recited from memory. Victoria looked at Dylan with an expression of feigned surprise. "My Dylan, do you really need that much supervision?" "It's not supervision," Kate said, keeping her professional tone. "It's organization. Dylan has many projects going on at the same time." "Of course he does. He's always been very ambitious," Victoria smiled. "I remember when he tried to revolutionize the real estate market with that idea of floating houses. What a delightful disaster that was." Kate saw Dylan shrink slightly. "The floating houses were an interesting idea," she said. "Sustainable and innovative." "Interesting is a polite word for impractical." Victoria laughed. "But that's what I love about Dylan. He dreams big, even when the dreams are, well, dreams. Some dreams come true when you have the right person helping you organize them." Kate shot back. "True, that's why I'm here, to help Dylan focus on projects that are really viable." The tension in the room was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Dylan looked between the two women like a man watching a very dangerous tennis match. "Ladies," he began. "Women," Kate and Victoria corrected in unison, then looked at each other with mutual irritation. "Women," Dylan corrected quickly. "Maybe we can all work together without—" "Of course we can," Victoria said sweetly. "Kate, could you make coffee for us?" "Yesterday's was a little weak." Kate blinked slowly. "I can make coffee, but usually James takes care of the drinks, right, James?" "Certainly, Miss Morris," the fridge replied. "Double espresso for Mr. Brooks as always?" "James is so helpful," Victoria said, "but sometimes a human touch makes a difference." "Kate, you must have learned to make excellent coffee in your previous jobs." The veiled insult hung in the air like toxic smoke. "Actually," Kate said with a sweet smile, "I learned to make excellent coffee by watching how people with good taste prefer it. Dylan, for example, likes his strong but not bitter. Victoria, I can assume you like yours like your personality, artificial and with lots of sugar?" Dylan choked on the coffee he was drinking. Victoria smiled, but her eyes shone dangerously. "What an interesting observation. You must have learned a lot about observation in your cleaning jobs." "I did. For example, I learned that the most insecure people are the ones who try the hardest to put others down, and the most ambitious people are the ones who don't know when they're out of their place." "Enough!" Dylan finally exploded. "You two, stop it right now." Kate and Victoria looked at him, surprised by the outburst. "Sorry." Dylan said, running a hand through his hair. But this is getting ridiculous. Victoria, Kate is an excellent assistant and a smart person. Kate, Victoria is here to help with an important project. Can you try to get along? Kate looked at Dylan, waiting for him to add something more. Some real defense, some acknowledgement that Victoria was being completely inappropriate, but he only looked between them as if they were equally guilty. Of course, Kate said coldly. I can be absolutely professional. Great, Victoria said. So can I. The rest of the morning passed in a kind of polite Cold War. Victoria made subtle comments about Kate's education, her experience, her clothes. Kate responded with seemingly innocent remarks about Victoria's constant need for validation. Dylan tried to mediate, but it was like trying to separate two cats with a feather. At lunchtime, when Dylan and Victoria left for the so-called club, Kate finally had a moment to breathe. She was seriously considering updating her resume when her phone rang. A message from a number she recognized, but never expected to see again. Ryan. Hi, Kate. I know I have no right to reach out after what happened, but I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Kate looked at the message for a long moment. The man who had humiliated her in that restaurant, who had indirectly caused all the confusion that led to her being fired, and eventually to this impossible job. Why was he contacting her now? She was about to delete the message when another came in. It's about Dylan Brooks. There are things you need to know about him and Victoria. Kate felt a chill run down her spine. Why did Ryan know Dylan? And what did he know about Victoria? She looked around the empty penthouse, hearing only the distant sounds of Svetlana organizing files and James adjusting the temperature. Against her better judgment, she typed a reply. Kate, what do you want? The answer came almost immediately. Ryan, to protect you from making a very big mistake. Meet me tonight, Starbucks on Lincoln Road, 7 p.m. Please, Kate, it's important. Kate stared at the phone, feeling like she was about to make a decision that would change everything. Again. Outside the window, Miami sparkled under the midday sun, indifferent to the human dramas unfolding in the penthouses of its most expensive buildings. Kate sighed and put the phone away. She had already made too many mistakes recently. What was one more? Kate arrived at the Starbucks on Lincoln Road at 7 sharp, wearing her battle armor, the most professional blouse she owned, and an expression that made it clear she wasn't there for games. Ryan was already sitting at a table in the back, looking nervous and holding a cup of coffee as if it were a shield. Kate, he stood when he saw her. Thank you for coming. Don't thank me yet, she said, sitting down without taking the bag off her shoulder. You have 15 minutes before I decide this was a monumental mistake. Ryan seemed to swallow hard. Straight to the point, then. Dylan Brooks is not who you think he is. Kate raised an eyebrow. And who do I think he is? A nice guy who saved you from a bad date. A good boss who gave you an opportunity. And he's not that? Kate, Dylan Brooks is my cousin. Kate blinked slowly, processing the information. Your cousin? A distant cousin, but still. And I've known him and Victoria for years. That whole story at the restaurant, it wasn't a coincidence. Kate felt a chill in her stomach. What do you mean by wasn't a coincidence? Dylan knew you were going to be there. Victoria told him about our date. How did Victoria know about our date? Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Because I told her. We kind of go out sometimes. Kate looked at him as if he had just confessed to being an alien. You go out with Victoria. Victoria, who is Dylan's ex-fiancée. Dylan, who showed up at the restaurant to humiliate you and save me. When you put it like that, it sounds like some crazy conspiracy, because it is some crazy conspiracy. Kate exclaimed, making a few people turn their heads. Ryan, are you telling me my disastrous date was staged? Not exactly. I mean, I really didn't want to continue the date. Wow, thanks for the brutal honesty. But Dylan was there because Victoria suggested he go. She said it would be fun to see how he handled an interesting social situation. Kate stood up abruptly. Interesting social situation? I was an experiment? Kate, wait, no, I'm not waiting for anything. This is sick. There's more. Kate froze halfway through grabbing her bag. More? Victoria never got over the breakup. She still loves Dylan. And now that you two are, well, close, she's doing everything she can to push you away from him. Why are you telling me this? Ryan sighed. Because that night at the restaurant, when I saw the way Dylan looked at you, I had never seen him look at Victoria like that. And I felt bad. You didn't deserve to be used as a chess piece in her little game. Kate sat down again, feeling like the world had flipped upside down. So Dylan knew. He knew about all of it. I don't know how much he knew. Maybe Victoria only told him she had a friend going through a bad date, and he decided to play knight in shining armor. Kate, 15 minutes are up, she said, standing again. That's when she saw Dylan standing outside the Starbucks, looking through the window with an expression that mixed confusion and something that looked a lot like anger. Their eyes met for a second, and Kate saw the exact moment Dylan came to the wrong conclusion about the situation. "Oh my God," she murmured. Dylan stormed into the cafe like a hurricane in a suit. "Kate, what are you doing here?" His eyes shifted to Ryan. "With him, Dylan," Kate began. "Hi, cousin," Ryan said, trying a smile that came out more like a grimace. "Cousin?" Dylan looked between them. "Kate, did you know he was my cousin?" "I just found that out." "Yeah, that, along with some other interesting information." "What information?" Ryan stood up, clearly uncomfortable. "Maybe I should go." "No," Kate said firmly. "You're going to stay here and explain to your cousin what you just told me." Dylan looked at Ryan with a dangerous expression. "What did you tell her?" "The truth," Ryan said. "About Victoria suggesting you go to the restaurant that night." The color drained from Dylan's face. "Ryan, and about how she's still in love with you and wants to push Kate away." "That's not true," Dylan said, but his voice didn't sound convincing. "Isn't it?" Kate laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "So you didn't know I'd be at that restaurant?" Victoria mentioned she knew someone who was having a bad date, and you decided to show up and play superhero? It wasn't like that." "Then what was it, Dylan?" "Explain it to me, because now I'm confused about which parts of my life were real and which were theater." "Kate, I can explain." "No," she said, grabbing her bag. "I don't want explanations. I want distance." Dylan tried to follow her, but Kate turned quickly. "Don't follow me. Don't look for me. Don't send your virtual assistants to talk to me." She walked out of Starbucks, leaving Dylan and Ryan in an awkward silence. The walk back to the Ocean Tower was a blur of confused emotions. Kate felt deceived, used, and stupidly naive for believing that someone like Dylan Brooks could genuinely be interested in her. When she arrived at the penthouse, Victoria was there, of course, organizing some papers on the desk with the efficiency of someone marking territory. "Kate," Victoria said with fake cheer. "How was your date?" Kate stopped and looked at Victoria with crystal clarity. Eye-opening. "Oh, that's good. Ryan is an interesting man, isn't he? Though maybe not exactly at your level." Kate walked over to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of orange juice, went back to where Victoria was, and poured it over her head. Victoria screamed, more from surprise than pain. "Are you out of your mind?" "Probably," Kate said calmly. "But at least now I'm awake." That's when Dylan walked into the apartment, saw Victoria dripping orange juice onto the marble floor, and Kate gathering her personal things from the desk. "Kate? What?" "I'm quitting," she said without looking at him. "Because of what Ryan said?" "Kate, I can explain." "Dylan, it doesn't matter anymore. It mattered last night when we almost kissed. It mattered this morning when Victoria was wearing your shirt and making coffee in your kitchen. But now I get it. I was never anything more than a charity project for you to feel good about yourself." "That's not true, isn't it?" Kate finally looked at him. "Then tell me, Dylan, last night when Victoria showed up, why didn't you defend me? Why did you let her treat me like a maid who forgot her place?" Dylan opened and closed his mouth with no answer. "Exactly," Kate said, "because deep down that's what you think I am, a maid who forgot her place." Victoria," Kate said, turning to the woman still wiping juice from her hair. "He's all yours. I hope you're very happy together planning schemes to humiliate innocent people." Kate grabbed her things and headed to the door. "If you walk out that door now," Dylan said desperately, "how will I fix this?" Kate stopped with her hand on the doorknob. "You won't," she said simply. "Some things can't be fixed, Dylan, especially when they were broken on purpose." She left, leaving Dylan standing in the middle of the room, Victoria dripping juice, and a silence that seemed to echo forever. In the days that followed, Dylan simply disappeared. He canceled meetings, didn't show up at the company, and didn't answer calls. James reported worriedly that he wasn't eating properly, and Svetlana noted that he spent hours staring at the computer screen without typing a thing. It was as if Kate had taken with her not just her presence, but also the energy that made Dylan function. Meanwhile, Kate went back to her old life, job hunting and trying to forget that for 2 months she had known what it was like to be seen as more than just someone who cleaned up other people's messes. A week after dumping orange juice on Victoria's head and quitting the strangest job of her life, Kate was doing what any sensible person would do, eating ice cream straight from the container while watching reruns of cooking shows on the couch. It was a questionable coping strategy, but it worked. Her best friend Sarah had other ideas about how to deal with existential crises. Kate Morris, Sarah said, bursting into the apartment with the spare key Kate regretted more and more having given her. "You smell like self-pity and Ben & Jerry's." "It's a new perfume," Kate muttered, not taking her eyes off the TV. "It's called Unemployed and Disillusioned. I'll ignore the drama and get straight to the point." Sarah sat on the couch and took the ice cream out of Kate's hands. "Something arrived for you. If it's another job offer to clean offices overnight, you can send it back." "It's not a job offer." Sarah pulled an elegant envelope from her bag. "It's an invitation." Kate looked at the envelope as if it were a potential bomb. The paper was thick, expensive, with her name written in golden calligraphy. "Who would send me an invitation? Especially one that looks like it costs more than my rent?" "Only one way to find out." Kate reluctantly took the envelope and opened it. Inside was an even fancier card. "You are honored to be invited to the annual Brooks Foundation Gala for Sustainable Technology. Saturday, May 15th, 7 p.m. Fontainebleau Hotel, Miami Beach. Attire black tie. RSVP by Thursday." And at the bottom, handwritten, "Please come. Dylan." Kate stared at the invitation for a long moment. "It's from Dylan," she finally said. "The millionaire with virtual assistants and family problems? That one." "What does he want?" "I have no idea." Kate tossed the invitation onto the coffee table. "But I'm not going to find out, because I'm not going." "Why not?" "Sarah, you were here when I came back that night. You saw my complete meltdown about how I was used as a chess piece in their sick little game. Why would I willingly put myself in a situation where I'll see Dylan and probably Victoria too?" "Because you're curious. I'm not curious." "Kate, you've been eating coffee ice cream for a week while watching shows about how to make elaborate cakes. You're clearly in denial about something. I'm mourning my sense of judgment, which apparently died the moment I decided to trust a problematic millionaire." Sarah picked up the invitation and studied it. A charity gala. That means important people, media, the entire Miami elite. Why would he invite you to an event like that? To humiliate me publicly? To prove I don't belong in that world? To have fun watching the ex-cleaning lady stumble in expensive shoes? Or, Sarah said slowly, to apologize in the most public and dramatic way possible. Kate looked at her. "That's movie stuff, Sarah. In real life, rich people don't make grand romantic gestures to apologize to their former employees. In real life, former employees don't dump orange juice on ex-fiancés' heads and walk away like movie heroines." Kate had to admit she had a point. "Even if I wanted to go, and I don't have the right clothes for a gala. Black tie is not exactly what I have in my closet." Sarah smiled mischievously. "Leave that to me." 2 days later, Kate found herself in front of Sarah's bedroom mirror, wearing a dress that probably cost more than her monthly salary back when she was cleaning. "Where did you get this?" Kate asked, admiring the red dress that fit her body perfectly. "My cousin works at a formal dress shop. This is a loan, so try not to spill anything on it." "I can't promise that." "My recent history with drinks as weapons is problematic." Sarah laughed while fixing Kate's hair. "You look beautiful. That red brings out your eyes." "Sarah, I still haven't decided if I'm going." "Kate, you're already dressed with makeup on, and I spent 2 hours on your hair. You're going. And what if it's a trap? What if Victoria is there with some new evil plan?" Then you throw a drink at her again, but this time, aim better. Kate laughed in spite of herself. "You're a bad influence. I'm a good friend who doesn't want to see you wasting away on the couch eating ice cream for the next 6 months." Kate looked at herself in the mirror one more time. The woman staring back looked confident, elegant, like someone who really belonged at a gala event. It was an illusion, of course, but a convincing illusion. "Fine," she said, picking up the small evening bag Sarah had lent her. "I'll go, but only for 2 hours, and if anyone recognizes me as the ex-cleaning lady who had a public meltdown, I'm leaving." "Deal. Now, let's go, because you need to arrive at the perfect time for maximum impact." The ride to the Fontainebleau was a mix of nerves and determination. Kate mentally rehearsed several versions of casual conversations, all ending with her leaving gracefully without causing a scene. When she arrived at the hotel, however, all her mental preparation evaporated. The event was even grander than she had imagined. Luxury cars stopped at the entrance, dropping off people who looked like they had stepped straight out of celebrity magazines. Photographers captured every arrival, and the hotel entrance was decorated with lights and flowers that probably cost more than Kate's rent for a year. "May I help you?" a man in a suit at the entrance asked. "Kate Morris," she said, showing the invitation with slightly trembling hands. He checked a list and smiled. "Of course, Miss Morris. Welcome." Kate walked into the main hall and felt as if she had stepped into a fairy tale. The place was full of elegant people, chatting in small groups, while waiters moved around with trays of champagne and appetizers that looked like tiny works of art. She grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and tried to look like she belonged there, even though her heart was beating like a rock drum. That's when she saw him. Dylan was across the room, wearing a tuxedo that made him look straight out of a James Bond movie. He was talking to a group of important people, but his eyes kept scanning the room, as if he was looking for someone. Kate hid behind a decorative column, suddenly not feeling as brave as she had 15 minutes earlier. "Hiding is not a good strategy at social events," said a familiar voice behind her. Kate turned and almost spilled her champagne when she saw Victoria approaching, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than Kate's car. "Victoria, what a surprise. Not a pleasant surprise, I'm sure." Victoria smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I must admit I was surprised when I saw your name on the guest list." "That makes 2 of us. Kate, may I be honest with you? You can try. You don't belong here. This is Dylan's world. It always has been, always will be, and no matter how many borrowed dresses you wear, or how many times he tries to play your savior, you'll never be more than a temporary curiosity to him." Kate looked at Victoria for a long moment, then took a sip of champagne. "Victoria, you may be right about me not belonging here, but at least I don't spend my whole life trying to force someone to love me back." With that, Kate stepped out from behind the column and walked toward the center of the room, leaving Victoria speechless. Maybe she didn't belong there, but since she was, she might as well make it count. Kate spent the next 15 minutes pretending to study the artwork on the walls while secretly watching Dylan across the room. He was still talking with the same group of important people, but now he looked distracted, checking his watch constantly. She was seriously considering slipping out the back door when someone tapped the microphone on the small stage set up at one end of the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen," said a man in a flawless suit, "if you could turn your attention to the stage, the founder of the Brooks Foundation would like to say a few words." Kate watched Dylan walk up to the stage with the natural elegance of someone used to being the center of attention. He adjusted the microphone and looked out at the crowd, which had fallen respectfully silent. "Good evening," he began with that charming smile Kate knew so well. "Thank you for being here tonight to support our mission of making sustainable technology accessible to everyone." Polite applause echoed through the hall. Kate noticed Victoria sitting in the front row, smiling as if she were hosting the event. "This foundation was born from a simple belief," Dylan continued, "that the best ideas come from unexpected places, from people who may never have had the chance to show their potential." He paused, and his eyes searched the audience until they found Kate. Even from across the room, she felt the impact of that look. "Recently, I learned something important about myself," Dylan said, never taking his eyes off her. "I learned that I had lived most of my life on autopilot, surrounded by people who told me what I wanted to hear, doing things I was supposed to do because that's what was expected of me." Kate felt a chill in her stomach. Where was this going? But then I met someone who completely changed my perspective. Someone who made me laugh at myself, who organized not just my schedule, but my entire life. Someone who taught me that honesty matters more than convenience, and that courage has nothing to do with money in the bank." A murmur began to spread through the crowd. Kate glanced around and realized some people were following Dylan's gaze, trying to figure out who he was talking about. "Dylan," she whispered to herself. "What are you doing?" "This person," he continued, now clearly speaking only to Kate, "taught me that being saved isn't about having someone pull you out of trouble. It's about having someone who encourages you to face those problems head-on." Victoria looked like she had swallowed something bitter. Even from across the room, Kate could see she was furious. "And I made a mistake," Dylan said, stepping down from the stage and walking through the crowd, which parted like the Red Sea to let him through. "A terrible mistake. I let other people convince me that some worlds don't mix, that some differences are too big to overcome." He stopped right in front of Kate, who was leaning against the wall with a champagne glass in hand, looking like she desperately wished she were anywhere else in the universe. "But the truth is, there are no different worlds," Dylan said, looking straight at her, the microphone still in his hand, making every word echo through the silent hall. "There are only brave people and people who are afraid. And I've been afraid for far too long, Dylan." Kate whispered, "Everyone is watching. I know, and I want them to see." He turned to the crowd who were watching the scene like an unexpected play. "This is Kate Morris," he said to the 300 most important guests in Miami. "She was my cleaning lady, then my assistant, and now she's the woman I'm completely in love with." The silence that followed was so deep, Kate was certain everyone could hear her heart beating. Then the buzz exploded. Whispers, muffled exclamations, the unmistakable sound of a social elite trying to process a scandal in real time. "Dylan," Kate said, her voice almost inaudible. "Have you lost your mind?" "Completely," he smiled. "It took me a while to realize, but you've driven me crazy since that first night at the restaurant. You're ruining your reputation. My reputation means nothing if I lose it in the process." Kate looked around at the shocked faces, the looks of disapproval, phones discreetly pulled out to capture the moment. "Your mother is going to have a heart attack. Probably several, but she'll survive." Victoria, who until then had been frozen by shock, finally reacted. She stepped up onto the improvised stage with the fury of a woman whose plans were collapsing in public. "Dylan Brooks," she said loud enough for everyone to hear, "you've completely lost your mind, maybe." Dylan replied without turning to her. "But I'd rather be crazy and in love than sane and empty. You're making a fool of yourself for a cleaning lady." "I'm declaring myself to the woman I love. If that makes me a fool, then I'm the happiest fool in Miami." Kate looked at Victoria, flushed with anger and humiliation, at the crowd whispering and pointing, and at Dylan, who stood there as if publicly confessing his love for his former employee were the most natural thing in the world. "You are crazy," she said finally. "I am crazy about you." "Dylan, this is Kate Morris," he interrupted, taking her hand. "Will you give me a second chance to do things right? Because if you say yes, I promise I will never let anyone treat you as less important than anyone in this room. I promise I will stand up for you, protect you, and love you exactly as you are." Kate felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "You're doing this in front of 300 people. If necessary, I'd do it in front of 3,000. And then, to the absolute shock of Miami's entire elite, Dylan Brooks dropped to one knee in the middle of the city's most elegant gala hall. He pulled a small velvet box from his tuxedo pocket. The silence was replaced by audible gasps of surprise. "Dylan," Kate said, looking at him kneeling before her. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done weeks ago," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "Kate Morris, will you marry me?" Kate looked at the ring, at Dylan kneeling, at the crowd with mouths open, and at Victoria, who seemed to be having a silent breakdown. For a moment, the whole world seemed to be holding its breath for her answer. She said finally, with a smile that started small and grew until it lit up her whole face, "You are, without doubt, the craziest person I've ever met. Is that a yes?" Kate glanced one last time at the crowd of expectant faces. took a deep breath, and said the only thing that made sense. "That's a very enthusiastic. Why not?" Dylan stood and kissed her right in the middle of the gala hall, while 300 important people applauded. Some genuinely moved, others still trying to process what they had just witnessed. And somewhere in the back of the room, Kate heard someone say, "Well, that will be a story we tell for years." She couldn't agree more. The kiss lasted exactly 7 seconds. Kate counted, because her shock made her mind do strange things like time romantic moments. And when they parted, Miami's elite applauded as if they had just watched the end of a movie. "Well," Kate said, still with Dylan holding her hands, "that was cinematic." "It was intentional," he replied, smiling. "I thought you deserved a movie-worthy moment after everything we went through. Dylan Brooks, you proposed to me in front of 300 people without even knowing if I wanted to date you again. Technically, I asked if you'd give me a second chance and then asked if you'd marry me. 2 different questions." Kate laughed, shaking her head. "You're right, and for the record, my answer to both is yes. But with conditions." "Conditions?" Dylan raised an eyebrow. "Are you negotiating the terms of our relationship in the middle of a charity gala?" "I'm a practical woman, Dylan. I've learned it's better to make things clear from the start." The crowd around them began to disperse discreetly, returning to their conversations, though Kate noticed several people still looking their way and whispering. "Okay," Dylan said, still holding her hands. "What are your conditions?" "First, I will not be your trophy. I will not attend events just to look pretty by your side and smile politely while people ask, 'What do you do?' and then change the subject when they find out I don't have an MBA. "I completely agree. By the way, you're much smarter than most people with MBAs that I know. Second, I will keep my financial independence. I don't want an allowance. I don't want a joint credit card. I don't want to be supported. I will find my own work and contribute to my own expenses." "I agree as well. But may I suggest you consider starting your own organizing business? You have a natural talent for it." Kate paused, considering. "That actually isn't a bad idea." "Third condition?" Dylan smiled, clearly amused by the situation. "Third, no hiding our relationship from your family or pretending I'm something I'm not. If your mother can't accept you being with an ex-cleaning lady, then she'll have to learn to deal with it. Kate, my mother will have to accept that I'm with the woman I love, regardless of what she did before meeting me. And if she can't, that's her problem, not ours. Fourth, your psychotic ex-fiancé is officially banned from our lives. I don't want Victoria on projects, I don't want her at events, and I don't even want to hear her name unless it's to talk about how she finally found therapy." Dylan glanced over Kate's shoulder at Victoria, who was still standing there, looking at them with an expression mixing fury and disbelief. "Considering she just witnessed our public engagement, I think she'll want to keep her distance anyway." "And fifth," Kate said, growing serious, "no surprises like that without warning me first. Next time you want to make a public declaration of love, give me a heads up so I can at least use waterproof mascara." Dylan laughed out loud. "I promise. Although I should say, you look beautiful even with smudged mascara." "My mascara is not smudged. It's a little," he gently brushed under her right eye with his thumb. Kate looked around the hall, where people kept pretending not to be interested in the drama that had just unfolded. "Dylan, you realize this will be in every Miami gossip paper tomorrow, right? And probably on social media tonight?" "It's already on social media," said a voice behind them. They turned to see a young man with a phone in his hand. "Sorry," he said, looking embarrassed. "I'm a reporter for the Miami Herald. I couldn't help filming. This is quite a story." Kate looked at Dylan. "We're going to become a meme, aren't we?" "Probably," Dylan agreed. "Do you mind?" Kate thought for a moment. A week ago, the idea of becoming a meme for being romantically involved with her former millionaire boss would have terrified her. Now, after everything they'd been through, it seemed almost insignificant. "You know what? I don't mind. At least it'll be a romantic meme." "Millionaire proposes to cleaning lady at charity gala," the reporter said, clearly already composing the headline in his head. "Any official comment?" Kate and Dylan looked at each other. "Love is unpredictable," Kate said finally, "and sometimes the best things in life come from where you least expect them. And sometimes, Dylan added, you need the courage to grab happiness when it appears, even if it's in the middle of a charity gala. The reporter smiled and put his phone away. Thanks. And congratulations, you just gave me the best story of the week. As he walked away, Kate turned to Dylan. So what do we do now? Go back to your penthouse and pretend this was an elaborate dream? Actually, Dylan said, taking her hands again, I have a confession to make. Another one? Dylan, my heart can't handle much more drama for today. This is a good one, I promise. Remember you said you don't want to be a trophy and want to keep your independence? Literally 2 minutes ago, yes. Well, I kind of already thought about that. And I have a business proposal for you. Kate looked at him suspiciously. What kind of business proposal? A partnership. You with your organizing company, me with my resources and contacts. Together, we can create something really special. Go on. Imagine a company that not only organizes people's lives, but helps them turn their ideas into reality. You have the talent to organize chaos. I have experience turning ideas into viable businesses. Kate considered the proposal. That would be interesting. But we'd have to keep things professional at work. Absolutely. During the day, we're business partners. At night, we're a passionate couple planning our life together. And what kind of life would that be? Dylan smiled, and Kate recognized that expression. It was the same one he had whenever he talked about his craziest and most wonderful ideas. A little house with a porch, a dog that barks at mailmen, breakfast in bed on Sundays, and maybe eventually kids running around the yard and driving James completely crazy. Kate laughed, picturing the British fridge trying to handle a house full of children. A little house? You, Dylan Brooks, want to live in a little house? With you, I'd live in a tent in the middle of the desert. How romantic. But I'd rather have the little house with a porch. Dylan pulled her closer. So is this it? Are we really going to try again? For real this time? Kate looked around the gala hall, at all the important people discussing important things, at the life she could have if she said yes. Then she looked at Dylan, with his eyes full of hope and love, and she knew she had already made her decision the moment he knelt down. Dylan Brooks, she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him again, you've convinced me. And there, in the middle of Miami's elite, with discreet photographers capturing the moment and important people whispering about the romantic scandal of the year, Kate Morris finally knew what it felt like to be seen not as a cleaning lady or an assistant, but as a woman loved exactly for who she was. It was, she decided, a feeling worth every newspaper headline in the world. 4 months after the gala that turned Kate Morris from an unemployed cleaning lady into a viral millionaire's fiancée, she was sitting in her new office, looking at a schedule that would have given Svetlana an organizational thrill. Morris and Brooks, Life Organization and Transformation, had become the most sought-after company in Miami in record time. Part of it was due to the notoriety of the public proposal. Part of it was because Kate really was exceptional at what she did. And a small part was because Dylan had connections that opened doors. But mostly it was because Kate had discovered she had a natural talent for turning chaos into order, and people were willing to pay very well for it. "Good morning, Kate," said Amanda, her new assistant, walking in with a cup of coffee and a list. "You have a meeting with Mrs. Peterson at 10 about organizing her closet, a call at 11 with Forbes magazine about the article on women entrepreneurs, and at 2, you're recording the podcast on personal finance." Kate looked at the schedule and laughed. "Amanda, 6 months ago, I was cleaning office bathrooms. Now I'm giving financial advice on podcasts. Life is a strange thing. You're an inspiration, Kate. Women connect with your story. Or they find it funny that someone turned a humiliating firing into an organizing empire." Kate had discovered, to her own surprise, that people loved her straightforward and humorous approach to organization and finance. Her Instagram profile, which had started as a joke, now had 200,000 followers who adored her tips on how to organize your financial life without selling a kidney, and how to clean your house as if your mother-in-law were about to arrive in 5 minutes. The phone rang. Morrison Brooks, Kate speaking. "Hi, future wife," said Dylan's familiar voice. "How's the organizing empire today? Growing. Has your future husband learned to make coffee without burning down the kitchen?" "Actually, yes. James is very proud of my progress. Yesterday, he congratulated me for making coffee without setting off the fire alarm. Kate laughed. Over the last 4 months, Dylan had seriously dedicated himself to learning how to do normal things. Cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, driving his own car instead of always using a driver. It was endearing and a little disastrous at the same time. Has Svetlana accepted that you're going to have a normal domestic life? She's adjusting. Yesterday, she suggested I hire a personal chef to avoid wasting resources on inefficient cooking attempts. I told her I'd rather burn a few eggs if it meant making breakfast for you. How romantic. Nothing says I love you like charred eggs. Speaking of breakfast, do you want to have lunch with me today? I thought we could start planning a few wedding details. Kate looked at her packed schedule. I can fit you in at 3 after the podcast. Perfect. I'll book a table at the usual place. The usual place was a small, cozy cafe 10 minutes from Kate's office, very different from the fancy restaurants Dylan used to frequent. They had discovered they preferred places where they could talk without worrying about who was listening. Love you, Dylan said before hanging up. Love you too, Kate replied, still surprised at how natural it felt to say it. The rest of the morning went by quickly. The meeting with Mrs. Peterson was a success. Apparently, when you have 40 pairs of identical shoes, it might be time to rethink your shopping strategies, and the call with Forbes went better than expected. Recording the podcast was Kate's favorite part of the day. She loved talking about personal finance in a way that made sense to real people. And remember, she said into the microphone, you don't need a complicated budget with 15 different categories. You need 3 things. Know how much comes in, know how much goes out, and make sure the first number is bigger than the second. If you can do that, you're already ahead of 70% of the population. When she finished recording, Kate felt energized and accomplished. There was something deeply satisfying about helping people get their lives in order. As she walked to meet Dylan, she realized she had been feeling a little strange for the past few days. Nothing serious, just different. A bit more tired than usual, a bit more sensitive to smells. In fact, yesterday morning she almost threw up when Dylan was cooking bacon. She had blamed it on the fact that he was still learning how to control the stove, but now, thinking about it, Kate stopped in the middle of the sidewalk as the realization hit her like lightning. Oh my God, she murmured to herself. She looked around, saw a pharmacy on the corner, and made an impulsive decision. 15 minutes later, she was in the pharmacy bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. Well, she said to her reflection in the mirror, this is going to be interesting to explain. She arrived at the cafe in a state of controlled shock. Dylan was already there, reading something on his tablet and drinking coffee with the concentration of someone trying very hard to look like a normal man having a normal coffee. Hi, she said, sitting down. Hi. He looked up and smiled. How was the podcast? Good. Dylan, I need to tell you something. Uh-oh. From your tone, either you canceled our wedding or decided to move to Alaska. Neither. Kate took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. Dylan went so still that Kate wondered if he had stopped breathing. Pregnant, he repeated slowly. Pregnant. As in, we're going to have a baby. In about 8 months, if my math is right. Dylan kept staring at her without saying a word. Dylan, are you okay? Do you need water? Sugar? CPR? A baby? That's usually the consequence of pregnancy. Yes, still nothing. Dylan, you need to say something because I'm starting to worry you've gone into an emotional coma. Finally, Dylan blinked and a huge smile began to spread across his face. We're going to have a baby. We are. A real baby. No, Dylan, an imaginary baby. Of course real. Technically, it's more my baby for the next 8 months, but yes, our baby. Dylan stood up abruptly, walked around the table, pulled Kate up, and spun her in the air. Dylan, she laughed, put me down before I throw up on you. Sorry, he set her gently back on the ground. It's just, Kate, we're going to be parents, I know. It's kind of terrifying and kind of wonderful at the same time. How do you feel? Honestly, like I swallowed a roller coaster, but happy, very happy. Dylan pulled her into a hug. I love you so much. And I already love our baby. Even though it's the size of a grain of rice right now? Especially for that. Our little grain of rice. Kate laughed against his chest. Dylan Brooks, you're going to be the craziest father in Miami, and you're going to be the most amazing mother. Our child will be the most organized and most spoiled kid in the city. James is going to freak out about having a baby in the house. James will love having someone new to take care of. He already complains I don't eat enough vegetables. Imagine with a child. Kate pulled back a little to look at him. So we're really doing this? Marriage, baby, normal domestic life? Kate Morris, there's nothing I want more in the world. And there, in the middle of an ordinary cafe on an ordinary day, Kate knew her life had changed completely once again. But this time, she was more than ready for the adventure. 2 months after the pregnancy announcement, Kate Morris stood in front of Sarah's bedroom mirror, looking at her reflection with a mix of disbelief and joy. The simple but elegant wedding dress gently hugged the curve of her growing belly, and she couldn't stop smiling. "You look radiant," said Sarah, adjusting the veil. "Pregnancy suits you. I feel like a princess who swallowed a basketball," Kate replied. "But a happy princess. Dylan is going to faint when he sees you." "I hope not." It would be hard to explain to the priest why the groom is on the floor. They had decided on a small, intimate ceremony in the garden of the new house Dylan had bought, a real house, with a porch, a backyard, and enough space for a baby, a dog, yet to come, and all the virtual assistants Dylan insisted on keeping. Kate looked out the window and saw the guests arriving. Only 50 people, close family and friends. A sharp contrast to the gala months earlier, but exactly what they wanted. "Are you nervous?" Sarah asked. "Strangely, no." Kate adjusted the bouquet of simple flowers. "I think I've gone through every possible emotion with this man. Now I just want to make it official." "And his mother?" Kate made a face. Evelyn Brooks had taken 3 full months to accept that her son was really going to marry the cleaning lady, as she still referred to Kate when she thought no one was listening. But last week, she had shown up at Kate's office with a business proposal. "Actually," said Kate, "I think she finally realized I'm not going anywhere. Yesterday she offered me a contract to organize her foundation's office. That's progress. It's strategic surrender. She decided that if she can't beat me, she'll hire me." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. "May I come in?" said Ryan's voice. Kate opened the door to find Dylan's cousin standing there in a suit, holding a small envelope. "That Ryan? What are you doing here?" "Dylan asked me to give you this." He handed her the envelope. "And to apologize once more for all that mess months ago." Kate took the envelope and opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Kate, a year ago, I was a man who talked to refrigerators because it was easier than talking to real people. Today, thanks to you, I know what it means to have a real life with a real person, building something real together. Thank you for teaching me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who makes your imperfection perfect. I love you, Dylan, and James sends his regards." Kate laughed, wiping away a tear that had started to form. "He's impossible," she said to Ryan. "He's in love," Ryan corrected. "And for the record, I've never seen my cousin this happy." "Neither have I," Kate admitted. The ceremony was exactly as they had dreamed. The garden was decorated with simple lights and white flowers. A small orchestra played soft music, and everyone who mattered was there. When Kate walked down the improvised aisle, actually a stone path in the garden, on her father's arm, she saw Dylan waiting at the altar, and his smile was so bright she momentarily forgot how to walk. "Breathe," her father whispered. "One step at a time." The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They wrote their own vows, of course, and Kate made the priest and half the guests laugh when she promised to love, honor, and occasionally throw drinks at people who deserved it for Dylan. Dylan, in turn, promised to love, protect, and never again let Russian virtual assistants make important decisions about our lives. But it was during his speech, after the official ceremony, that everyone was truly moved. A year ago, Dylan said, standing next to Kate and holding her hand, "I thought I knew what success was. I thought it was about money, status, impressing people who didn't even really know me." He looked at Kate, and she saw in his eyes all the love and gratitude he felt. "But Kate taught me that real success is having someone who laughs at your bad jokes, who stops you from buying elephants, and who isn't afraid to tell you when you're being an idiot." Laughter echoed through the garden. She taught me that a home isn't about how many square feet you have or how many virtual assistants live with you. It's about having someone who makes you want to come home at the end of the day. Kate felt tears forming again. And now, Dylan continued, gently placing his hand on Kate's belly, we're going to have a family. And I know our child will be the luckiest person in the world because they'll have Kate Morris as their mother. Kate Brooks, she corrected, laughing through her tears. He repeated, smiling, the woman who turned my house into a home, my chaos into order, and my heart into something I didn't even know existed. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. To Kate, Dylan said, raising his glass of champagne. Kate was drinking grape juice. The woman who saved me from a life of conversations with household appliances. To Dylan, Kate replied, raising her glass. The man who proved to me that fairy tales can happen, even if they start with disastrous dates and end with Russian virtual assistants planning our honeymoon. They kissed while the guests clapped and laughed, and Kate thought she had never been so happy in her entire life. Hours later, when the guests had left and they were sitting on the porch of their new home, Kate, with her swollen feet resting on Dylan's lap, she looked around and smiled. So, she said, we did it. From cleaning lady and troubled millionaire to husband and wife with a baby on the way. And a growing company, Dylan added, and 4 virtual assistants who will probably try to raise our child. James has already suggested we buy organic food for the baby. Svetlana wants to create a development schedule. Alexa keeps playing classical music to stimulate fetal brain growth. Kate laughed. Our child will be the most organized and technologically advanced kid in Miami, or the most neurotic, or both. Dylan pulled her closer, and Kate nestled against him, feeling completely at peace. Kate, thank you. For what? For going to that terrible date, for accepting my crazy rescue, for giving me a second chance, for pouring orange juice on Victoria. Kate laughed out loud. That last one was for my own pleasure. Still, thank you for making me a better man. Kate turned to look at him. Dylan Brooks, you've always been a good man. You were just hiding under all that technology and complication. I only helped you find yourself. And you? Did you find yourself? Kate looked around the porch, at the garden where they had gotten married, at the house that was now theirs, at the ring on her finger, and at the life they had built together. You know what? I think I did. And there on the porch of their home, with the Miami stars shining above them and the future stretching out like a bright promise, Kate Morris Brooks knew she had found exactly where she belonged. At home with the man she loved, expecting the baby that had changed everything, and with a whole lifetime of crazy adventures ahead. What did you think of Kate and Dylan's story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to follow all of our stories. And don't forget to watch more exciting stories by clicking right here on the final screen.